So joining us this morning to discuss this is former Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith. Mr. Griffith, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Marlon. Good morning to many viewers.
Yes, always good to speak with you, Mr. Griffith. Well, the police commissioner says, quote, "What we are confronted with is an unrealistic expectation that the police can somehow miraculously transform the propensity, the disposition, the behaviors of people with criminal intent. How practical a proposition is that? Policing is not a substitute to parenting." Mr. Griffith, what's your take?
Well, okay, first thing again, good morning to all. I know you started this morning stating that dealing with national security and crime, politics must be involved in it. I think that is indeed the problem. Politics is what caused the problem with the merit list. Politics is what has caused the issue with all of the different 100+ policies that would have been reducing crime to be shut down. So what I'm speaking today is definitely not involving politics. We want to find solutions and find ways to make it happen. I would think that any law-abiding citizen and patriot of this country would want Earl Christopher to succeed, would want the Minister of National Security, the Chairman of the National Security Council to succeed. And that's what I will do. I will give comments, whether it is constructive criticism, to deal with the issue. Earl Christopher's comments, I think it is very unfortunate, but it has been the norm, Marlon, in the last decade or so by commissioners before and after me. It has been that situation where it reminds me so much of Milli Vanilli, whatever you do, don't put the blame on you. And you'd have heard it from Stephen Williams, from McDonald Jacob, from Earl Christopher. Anytime there's a situation where the Commissioner of Police does not know what to do, you blame society, you blame parents, you blame lack of legislation, you blame politicians, you blame the community, you say you need more prayers. It has always been that cop-out. Politicians do the same, where they try to blame the opposition for lack of legislation. That is not the way to go. There is something known as secondary crime prevention, which is true, that good parenting, good counseling, good guidance can assist persons away from a life of crime. But the aspect is that Earl Christopher needs to understand is you as the Commissioner of Police, that order in a country, the catalyst is the Trinidad Police Service. And by her comments, if she's saying that, is it that just 2 years ago we had good parents? Because we recall 2 years ago, public trust and confidence in the police was 59%. 1 year later, it went to 8%. Crime was the number 4 concern behind health, education, and the economy. It was the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. So by her comments, it makes no sense because what is it? Is that 2 years ago we had good parents and now we have bad parents? That is not the case. There's no difference. It's the same parents. What she needs to do is to just focus on your job. Don't shirk responsibility. Don't try to blame parents, society, the community, politicians. Do your job. And if you do that and try not to be politically influenced, because, as I said, over 100 proper policies, programs, operations, units have all been shut down. And that is the main concern, Marlon. It is not being done. You would have mentioned 508 odd murders so far for the year. 457 of those, I think, 457, have been by firearms. Guess what? 456 of those, 457, have been by illegal firearms. Yet Fitzgerald Hines spends all his time speaking about legal firearms. 456 out of 457 murders by firearms, by illegal firearms. Yet Earl Christopher is pressured by politicians to put all the emphasis on legal firearms. So I think if she spends more time in trying to deal with policies, operations, not try to shut down, dismantle all the things that would have been instrumental prior to, she would not have to be playing Milli Vanilli and trying to say, whatever you do, don't put the blame on you.
Let me be devil's advocate here, Mr. Griffith, because I think that when we look at your time in office, when it comes to fighting crime, there was an aggressive approach. Even the way that you spoke at news conferences or did interviews, I suspect that aggression was aimed at to engender some level of confidence, if I can say so. But we do have a new police commissioner, and there could be the argument that she has, well, we know she's a lady, and she has adopted a softer approach to things, and maybe that softer approach can touch the hearts of criminals, and we can see some level of decline in the crime rate.
Well, I beg to differ to that extent because I knew several senior police officers who were women, Archie and a few others, and they would not. It's not because they are female. I mean, even my wife Nicole Griffith, I would love to see her being a commissioner of police. So it really has nothing to do based on whether you're male or female. It has to do with the character of the individual. You have to understand your responsibility. Erla Christopher may be a very good commissioner probably 20 years ago when it is that we had less than 100 murders. And you need somebody who's administrative, who's just there to deal with the basic day-to-day running of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This is a time where you need a police commissioner who is strategic, who is tactical, who is operational, who understands that concept of the things that I would have put in place. And sometimes these things, if you do not understand it, if you fear technology, if you fear the type of things like such as the police app, which was the biggest app in the country had, and it allowed persons to have, you could actually take your phone and press on SOS to have an immediate response, having a 5-minute response because you have emergency response patrols throughout the country within less than 5 minutes, they turn up. A few moments later wasn't accidental. It was the utilizing of technology where someone can see someone jumping a wall, you call 999, you call 482 Gary, and the closest vehicle in proximity, because we had GPS tracking of 100 vehicles locking down the country. That put the deterrent, that put the fear, that reduced the product of opportunity. And that is what is required. So we need to have, and the good thing is, I want to tell the country, we are criticizing Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. But just remember, 2 years ago, public trust and confidence in the police service was 59%. It was one of the highest in public trust and confidence in all arms of the public service. Moving from 59 to 8%. It is not the police officers. These are the same officers. It's just a change in direction, in leadership, in policies, and it can come back. What is required is for us to understand and embrace technology, the things that would have been put in place that cause the criminals to back off. Erla Christopher's comment, again, I say about parenting, it is important, but even the police service have a big part to play in this, because that is why when I had the Commissioner's Cup, was to utilize sport as an avenue to turn young persons away from a life of crime, getting communities to work together, play together, have your battles on the sporting field rather than on the street and with weapons. That has been shut down. We had street talk with 1,000 police officers being trained to be a big brother to 1,000 at-risk youths. I had 30 undercover officers. You would have seen the movie 21 Jump Street. 30 police officers going undercover the 30 high-risk schools, whether they are working in sanitation, cleaners, whatever, and the students will not have known. And then you'll be getting information as to who's bringing in drugs, who has illegal weapons. Then we had an artificial turf. We are the only country in the Southern Caribbean with an artificial turf in St. James Barracks. Marlon, that is there for 2 years since I left, and it has not been touched. That is taxpayers' money. And because Gary Griffith built it for $2 million, which was 6 times less than the AstroTurf in Tacarigua that is unserviceable, that turf is supposed to be used for all of the young men and women around the community to play sport at no cost. The police is charging $500 an hour. So an AstroTurf that could be used to help develop in sport, to help young persons to turn away from a life of crime, to help parents, it is not being used because of the petty politics. And that is what I would advise you, Christopher. If you have a concern about parents, you as the Commissioner of Police, you have a vast number of resources that could be used to assist parents to turn young people away from a life of crime.
Yeah. Let's return to statistics, because I know that you love statistics. You're a man of statistics. Yeah? We have seen that over the years, right? You like to rattle off statistics. So I want to deal with the statistics of these 508 murders that have occurred already for this year, when compared to the 600 and something that happened last year. If there is a drop, which means if we do not have 600 murders for this year, is that an achievement for the police service? Is that something that they should be proud about?
Well, I remember Basdio Pandey as Prime Minister. He moved from 98 murders to 103. And moving up to 103, he put his hand in the air and said he doesn't know what more he could do. That is the sense of pride that he had, because one murder would be too many. And people criticize him for that 23 years later. So this is nothing to say, okay, we moved from 605 to probably 585. Let us go around and celebrate. Right now, doing the maths, average of 50 murders per month by 12, it's 600 murders. So if it is that we expect that December may have 50 murders and we're in half of November, that's another 25, 75 plus the 508, it means that we could very well be going into between 580 to 595 this year, unless there's a massive spike in December. Having said that, that is not the be all and end all. You said I speak about statistics. That's because I worked closely. I looked at the New York model in the 1990s, where New York City was known as police officers were known as pigs. Crime was at its highest, and I worked closely with then Mayor Rudy Giuliani, Bill Bratton, and Bernard Kerik, police commissioners, where they looked at the broken window theory and so forth. And there was a massive reduction in crime in the mid-90s. And then when I realized the citizens in New York did not feel safe, so the crime statistics is something totally separate and apart. So even though there's a reduction or an increase in crime, the perception and fear of crime is just as important. And that is what we need to look at. So whether it goes down to 2 murders less or 2 murders more, I heard Ola Christopher Martin Joseph herself recently by speaking about a decrease in the increase in crime. That is not what the country wants to hear. What the country wants to know is, listen, whether it goes up by 3 murders or down by 4, I want to know that you're doing something, and I want to feel safe. The perception and fear of crime in this country has never been so high, and that is what is important. We have to take away that perception and fear of crime, that a citizen will know. Any parent, when their child goes home, whether it's 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, they cannot sleep because they are fearful of what is happening out there. Persons are being killed. If you're being killed in front of a police station, God knows that how's the possibility of it not happening to me in front of my yard. And that is where I'm trying to get to Ola Christopher to understand. Do not take bait by politicians that, because governments, what we love to do, and opposition, when they change, you have to shut down and dismantle everything because they did it. The emergency response patrol, as I said, 100 vehicles strategically placed around the country, GPS tracking, being monitored by an operational command center that's been shut down, a commissioner's command center shut down, the 100 emergency response vehicles shut down, the shutting down of the SOS on the phone, the gender-based violence unit being totally watered down, the social media unit being shut down, the things that I was bringing in of body cameras, tasers, pepper spray, training for police officers, elite units, high polygraphs such as SOT, all of these things, if you shut down and dismantle because government is giving you pressure, then you are not going to perform, and you're going to be used as a scapegoat because they're going to say, well, there you go, you failed, so let's find somebody else. She needs to accept and understand, let me do what is required. The good thing for Trinidad and Tobago, let me tell you, there are some senior superintendents and ACPs in the police service. They are second to none. I could tell you that they could go anywhere in the world, and their capability of understanding and embracing technology, it is very good. They will understand it. And so it was not Gary Griffith's success. It was me understanding persons in middle management in the police service that are stepping up, because the dinosaurs who just still wanted to keep away from technology and stopping corruption and so forth, they're on their way out. Yeah. And in a couple of years, you're going to see a massive transformation in the Trinidad and Tobago police service, even without Gary Griffith.
Oh, I thought you were intimating that you're trying to make a comeback.
No, I will be in a position politically to assist in policy making. But the thing is, it would be when I was minister, it was difficult for senior officers to understand the things that I was bringing in, such as drones instead of a Goodyear blimp, bringing in the National Operations Center to monitor and control operations in any, whether it is in natural or man-made disasters. So they didn't want to embrace that. Thankfully, in 15, 16 odd months, when I'm in a position in government, I will now be in a position to implement policies that will now be embraced by those persons in senior middle management that will understand it. And that is what is important.
Yeah. Let's deal with the murders again, because that's the front burner issue. Even in your time as police commissioner, that was a problem, murders, gang activity. What were the challenges, and are those challenges, I suspect they are still present today, because we're still dealing with a very high murder toll. The police will tell you that most of the murders are gang related. We're seeing, even again at your time, and I remember we did an interview. You remember we would have done an interview down at the barracks, and we were speaking about these high-powered weapons, even at your time. So I'm just trying to find out and try to, if we can explain to members of the public this morning, what are the challenges? Why haven't we been able to effectively and adequately deal with the gang situation in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, there's something that's been going on for the last 15 years. As soon as a prime minister decided to embrace gangs and refer to them as community leaders, it was downhill from there. It has not stopped. When I was Minister of National Security, I said it. I fought battles even within my own government. And it started working, which is why during that period it was the highest reduction in serious crime in 30 years. As Commissioner of Police, I went against the same government and said the same thing. When it is you give gangs state contracts, you give them $5 million to build a $500,000 box train. The funds they use are not being used towards developing the community. They use it to buy more sophisticated weapons, hire more gang members, purchase more drugs, sell the drugs. You have more profit now to pay off persons in the protective services, and then they put hits on other gang members to get their state contracts. So unfortunately, there's a saying that if you play with filthy animals, you will get fleas. And that is what we have done with governments, where they believe that by giving state contracts to gangs, it has played a critical, and then the same police service, you want the police now to defend the country, but you're giving the gangs more investment, more capital than you're giving the police service. The police service, all you do is provide salaries. You don't give them the type of equipment. All the police officers need, all of them need to change the bulletproof vests. They're expiring. The tasers that we have right now, I was the first one to implement tasers because of commissioners. They were reluctant. But the tasers 5 years ago, they're outdated. There are new types of tasers that are not being acquired. So you're not doing that, but you're giving hundreds of millions of dollars to gangs for state contracts. That has to stop. It won't stop in 15 months. That has been a big problem. The second major problem has to do with the import of illegal weapons into the country. The U.S. Embassy confirmed with me that over 95% of the illegal weapons come through the legitimate ports of entry. Nothing is being done. You have not heard one comment by the government as to what they intend to do to stop the illegal entry of illegal weapons coming through the legitimate ports of entry. Every single comment that they make is about legal firearms. And as I said, 456 of 457 murders by firearms this year have been by illegal firearms. Yet all the government speaks about is legal firearms. Yet legal firearms, because I decided to be very open, and if it is you need a firearm, there's a clear and present danger, you get it. Dozens and dozens of lives were saved because of what I did, and people seem to be concerned about it. So it gives you the impression that the state, who are you trying to protect, the criminals or the law-abiding citizens? So those are the two main things, Marlon. The problem of the state giving contracts by hundreds of millions to gangs, and also the inability or the reluctance by the state to prevent illegal firearms from entering the country.
Let me put this on the table this morning, because it is felt, your leadership of the police service, there are some mixed reviews. Some love Gary Griffith, some just do not like you. I'm sure that you know that.
Of course.
But do you have any regrets? Because and I make no apology for this, and I'm doing it in front of your face, and I did use the term aggressive, and you were sometimes seen as very, very aggressive, not only to the criminals, you were aggressive to the media. It is a fact, and it was said by the Prime Minister, and we saw it about this spat, if we can describe it like that, between you and the Prime Minister, and you all exchanged words and did so publicly. Do you have any regrets? Because I think that there is a feeling that, look, if Gary Griffith was not that aggressive, then he would be police commissioner today. Do you have any regrets at all?
And I hear your point, Marlon, and the fact of the matter is, had it not been for that aggression, there would not have been the highest reduction in violent crime in 17 years. Had it not been for that aggression, criminals would not have feared the police. Had it not been for that aggression, public trust and confidence in the police service would not have gone from 14% in August 2018 to 59% when I left. So there was a time that was required to have a leader to stand up and fight. We were at a war. We are still in a war. You cannot be a leader in a war of armed conflict where hundreds of lives are being lost annually, and you expect me to sit down and tiptoe through the tulips. You've got to show that aggression, because by that aggression that I showed, and the aggression was measured. It wasn't aggression by abusing my authority, because if you recall, even during COVID, when every police service in the world, there was abuse of authority, there was absenteeism. We did not have one incident of the police abusing the authority. And it lifted morale, it lifted motivation by the police officers. People do not understand what the police service did during that COVID period. We had 150 men coming down into Frederick Street with Molotov cocktails and iron and stuff to destroy Port of Spain. The defense force stayed in camp. They said they were on standby, thanks to Stuart Young. And the police service became the military. The police service did what the defense force did in 1990. They had hundreds of them. They stood firm. They used the barriers. They used the tear gas. They diverted those 150 back down east of Duke Street to avoid Port of Spain being destroyed. That is the type of aggression that is needed. If you do not have that type of aggression, the officers are going to back off. They're not going to want to defend the country. We have a country to defend, and you need that type of leadership. You can't fight a war unless you're aggressive. If you're going to sit back and wait, the criminals are going to invade you. And just to quickly point out that what you mentioned with the Prime Minister, I swore an oath. My oath was to my God, my people, and my country, not a politician. So if a politician is clueless in understanding the public health regulations and you cannot arrest people in their home, and you make a public statement to say, well, you should arrest people in their home because it might benefit me politically, you could get thousands of young police officers being influenced by a prime minister making an incorrect statement because he was, and when we conversed after, the poor lad didn't understand his own laws. The police could not arrest people in their homes. 23 police chiefs in the United States, roughly, told the most powerful man on the planet, Mr. Trump, shut up. Your comments are causing problems for me to protect my community, my state, my region. And that is what a commissioner is supposed to do. You're not supposed to kowtow and bow to illegal comments or wrongdoing. That is the way I was cut. Nothing is going to change. I operated like that as the Minister of National Security. I operated like that as Commissioner of Police. Whether it is in future, I'm going to be a Prime Minister or a politician again or what. When I put my hand on that Bible, it is to my God, my country, and my people, not a politician.
Gary Griffith, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, and we do appreciate your frank talk. Thank you very much. Although you're not, your name is not Frank, but we appreciate your frank talk. Talk to you again soon. Thank you very much.